All right, the last Friday value video talked about food and osteoarthritis, joint damage. And it shared that the Stanford University School of Medicine determined the cause of joint damage is not wear and tear, not old age, it's chronic inflammation. So we're now discussing, well, what's causing chronic inflammation? Because if we know this, we can do something about it, right? And protect our joints and not move with pain as we get older. Well, we covered arachidonic acid, and I said that this week I was going to talk about another common reason. So here it is. It is fat cells. Fat cells produce inflammatory cytokines, or these chemicals in the body that promote inflammation. So if you're carrying excess weight, especially if you're carrying quite a bit of excess weight, it will promote chronic inflammation in the body. This is why people who carry excess weight, who might even fall into the obese or morbidly obese category, have joint issues. It's not just because they're carrying excess weight and it's putting a lot of pressure on the joints. Some of that's part of it, but typically you're stronger, your bones are denser because your body's used to carrying the weight. The issue is, it's what the fat cells do in the body themselves. They're like little chemical producing factories, and they wreak havoc on the body. Now, what are inflammatory cytokines, right? They're little proteins. They serve as messengers. They go between the cells, communicating, telling one cell what the other cell wants it to know. They bind to target immune cells, triggering the immune response. So that's what happens. They get there, they bind, and now the immune response says, oh, we're switched on. We were just told we have to go to work. And of course, when you have an excess of this can lead to inflammation and tissue destruction, which is common in rheumatoid arthritis. But we've also got osteoarthritis, right? We have other itises that are due to chronic inflammation. So let's look at just a little bit of fact here. Knee osteoarthritis, joint pain, and fiber. Now, here's two different studies. One study said that those who ate more fiber had an over 60% lower chance of getting knee arthritis compared to those who ate the least. Another study said that the upper quartile had a 1/3 lower chance of getting arthritis compared to those in the bottom 25%. So all of these studies are pretty much saying the same thing. Now, what has fiber? Plant foods. There's no fiber in animal foods. Zero, zilch, nada. Plant foods are loaded with fiber. So not only are you getting the fiber, you're getting all the antioxidants and all the nutrients, right? Here's another one. They looked at food and chronic inflammation, and they took blood markers for inflammation in over 1,000 women, average age near 60 years old. They divided them into 5 groups based on how much cruciferous veggies they consumed: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. They looked at the markers for the inflammation, and what they found was the women who ate the most cruciferous vegetables had lower markers for inflammation, and lowered quite a bit. The interleukin-6, which is a very common marker, lowered by 1/4. That's huge, right? There's another one talking about food. This looked at younger women, and you had overweight, and they randomized them to 2 groups. One added whole grains to the diet, and the other group, no change in their diet. The whole grain group, half their grain intake was from whole grains for 6 weeks. They were then asked to avoid whole grains for 4 weeks and crossed over to the other group for an additional 6 weeks. So this was a pretty well done study. They kind of crossed over just to be sure, right? Did it happen in both groups? Well, it did. The grain group consumed almost 100 grams of whole grain per day. The control group, 11 grams per day. Well, guess what? The average American gets about 11 grams of fiber per day. Pretty sad, right? Standard American diet does stand for sad. The whole grain group showed positive changes in the markers for inflammation. In the whole grain group, inflammatory markers decreased by quite a bit, 22% for CRP, 28% for soluble intercellular adhesion, and you don't need to know that, you just know that that's an inflammatory marker. The control group actually increased. So not only did they not get better, they got worse. They didn't even just stay the same. So it's so important for us to understand this, right? What you put in your mouth radically impacts the health of your joints. It's not all about wear and tear. Thanks for listening.